All right. Hey, everybody. It looks like we should be good and going here. How's everyone doing today?
Mm.
Yeah,
Today's a
thumbs
good
up.
day.
Yeah, we got the entire game design team together,
Yeah.
and hopefully, moving forward, we should have more live streams with the entire team. So that's gonna be nice. Thank you to everyone who's watching. Leave a comment and let us know that you're watching this. Jordan Graham saying hello. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so let's jump into this. What are we talking about today? Today we're talking about designing cards that have underperformed cards that we've made or concepts we've made that when they got launched in the sets, they just didn't do as well as we were expecting them to do. And what did we learn from that experience? How have we grown as designers? And what would be our next steps if we were to make something similar to that in the future? Or taking it the other way around, finding some cards that we've designed that are not performing well and trying to shed some light on why we designed it that way and why we think the card's better than most people think it is. So before I jump into that, let me just transition here. So I just want to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for supporting us throughout the year. I say that time and time again. It means a lot to us. Special shout out to Andrew, Gunther, Hill, Steven, Stevo, Nathan, and Will. All of the December packages have been sent out. This is the fastest I've done it. Like it's the 4th, and they're already out there. They're in the mailboxes or they're sent wherever they need to be sent. So if you normally pick up your Patreon packages from a store, go to that store. They'll have it. If you have yours mailed to you, then just wait. It'll be coming. If it was a bigger package, I've already sent you your tracking number, so you can keep an eye on it. And then the next thing, the Future League, all of the December Future League promos have been sent out. If you wanted that Casmodon and you're part of Future League, you would be getting that with your Patreon packages. Or if you're not part of Patreon, you'll be getting it normally. And then on top of that, I think that next month's Patreon promo is going to be Subjugation Strike. And the Future League promo... Oh, do I know it off the top of my head? I don't know it off the top of my head. Let me grab that. Future League promo. If you participate in Future League this month, it's going to be Stone Protector of Dai. So, both cards, absolutely phenomenal.
Nice.
Yeah. And on top of that, let's go back to showing our wonderful faces. Future League testing is happening tonight at 7 p.m. So if you're watching us now, come join us later on at 7 p.m. I'm going to be doing some testing. I know I'll try to grab Alex to join me, and maybe some of these guys will come and join me. But we'll be testing out a lot of the new champions, a lot of the new cards, talking through our thought process, and debating on things like that. And as always, if you aren't part of our Discord, please join us. I'll leave a comment in the chat here. And that's the link to join our Discord, join the group to continue this conversation. And the last thing I want to announce is that our town hall is happening on December 7th. That's this coming Monday, where we'll be breaking down all of the Future League cards that we've been testing, talking about some ideas, getting your feedback, because I know there's been a lot of conversations happening in Future League these days. So this would be the time for that. All right, let's jump into this conversation. I've been chatting enough. So what I'm going to do here, each designer has spent some time going through their card list, picking out a few cards. So I'm going to hand it off one at a time for everyone. Start with just one card. Talk about, the card, why didn't it perform as well as you were expecting? And then we'll have some questions about some things. And if you're in the chat and you have some questions for the designers, let us know. So, JC, do you want to kick things off for us?
Oh, you're just throwing me under the bus on this one, aren't you now?
Yeah.
So, one of the ones I tend to think that really does underperform from my list I created through, because Razor is the first time I'd gone through and designed cards, Angelic Chains. So, Angelic Chains is an enchantment that's attaches as a skill, and it ends up basically, if for 15 aura, mind you, at a 5 chi, But it's whenever you cast an ability, you may pay 5 aura. If you do, target summon in your awareness gains Pacify for the rest of this round. Pacify is still, I wouldn't say it's a super strong mechanic. It's a very techy mechanic to, at most, slow down certain champions in that who might focus more on using their own attack abilities rather than other techniques of that. And just the costing, I think, is one of the biggest issues on the Angelic Chains when I start to look at it, because it's kind of a similar debate I had a long time ago with Fire Master's dances. Well, we're putting a certain ability on a skill, perhaps, that we can trigger. How do we cost that? And how do we cost it effectively, per se?
Yeah.
So to start off, our Angelic Chains is 15 aura, which is already a big investment. And then to do the trigger, it's another 5 each time you use a cast ability itself. So it does get a little pricey. I just think the initial cost on Angelic Chains is probably where the card just does not see as much play as maybe it would have if it had been a lower cost at the starting investment, maybe at like a 5 or 6 aura or 7 aura, because multiple copies don't tend to factor in when it comes to Pacify.
Yeah. So in that regard, how do you feel about the rolling cost of having to pay 5 every time you cast a spell ability?
I don't find the 5 aura to do it, because really what you could do, you could be playing something like Raha. You could sit there, snipe someone with a gust, and then a target behind her that, let's say, that's potentially trying to get it to hit you maybe at range or something, you can now pacify that. So if referring to the champion's own awareness is pretty decent in that, especially as you get new champions who might have more awareness. This is even something like range. She could throw a gust at someone in front of her. If there's something beside her that's not attacking or can't attack her yet, she could turn around and pacify that there. So it is a very techy card. I just find that initial investment is really, really extremely pricey at all.
Yeah. So to cap, Carl, Lionel, any questions you have about this?
Not questions, but it's kind of like the point that it's hard to use, because even going to the point you have to use the pacify activation once you use the cast ability. So whatever you're using it on, in a lot of scenarios, they can just react to that pacify ability.
Yeah,
so it makes it even more difficult to actually use it. So I can see where JC's coming from.
Yeah. So JC, if you were to redesign the card, what would be your vision of the card now?
I would probably still keep the trigger where I'm at, but I'd really bring down that initial investment to maybe something like a 5 aura at that 5 chi. Just again, for each trigger of the pacify, you have to pay 5 aura, and you have to be triggering off the cast ability itself. Mind you, cast abilities now are only seen on spells and that, basically. But as we get further into the game, cast abilities won't probably just appear on spells. They will appear in other places. So
definitely.
Someone who might be concerned where, I have to cast a spell first. No, you might not be casting a spell from your hand. You might be casting it from your own champion.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Lionel.
Sorry, no, I was just gonna say along those lines. Like we even kind of related to it, because there is subjugation strike. It's a technique, but it has a cast ability on it. So there's definitely options, and like there'll be more cast abilities available as the game progresses. It gets developed. Yeah.
No, we are testing champions in Future League with built-in cast abilities. So that's so true. I think one of the big things I learned, especially from Angelic Chains and Fire Master's Dance, both of these being your creations, are that reoccurring cost of 5 aura is pretty steep, especially for a champion like Malik. Malik playing Fire Master's Dance, it does hurt over time. So that's one of those things that I'm now realizing is weighted a lot heavier when it comes to the cost of an ability. So that's something, if you were to pitch the card now, I would definitely be like, I don't think we need that recurring cost. Let's upfront that cost and then make it free every other time.
So for Fire Master's Dance, my only concern, I think we've expressed this before, if you want to go that way, was just the damage output on a fire ability. On something like angelic chains in that, you're not probably going to have more than one target half the time. You could probably kibosh that pretty close to and just bring down the initial cost of playing it. Fire Master's Dance, bring down the cost a little bit, but it's just the stackability of damage from that source and it being around you instead of like an adjacent or in your awareness.
Cool. All right, let's jump on to the next card. Carl, you want to go next?
Sure. So I was just really trying to think of what card underperforms. One that I hardly ever see people play would be Mystical Spear. So maybe talk about that one.
Yeah.
I don't have that in front of me, and I can't even remember how much it costs, but I know it's expensive. It does give you the option to use either energy or aura. I think it might be 16 aura and 7 energy, maybe. I can't
Along
remember.
those lines, yeah.
Yeah. So that might be the main reason why it's not used much, is that it's an expensive card to play and you're only getting 3 damage out of it. But I think the utility of it is that you can give yourself a little bit of range, and I mean, it's not quite as good as a Scorpion's awareness, but it's got that 2 spaces away, that full bar of 3 spaces that you can hit, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm not really sure why it's not played as much. It might be because you need a little bit more skill in combining other cards to use with it, and like using maneuver cards like smoke bomb or backflip or something like that, right? Where you can maneuver yourself. But yeah, I'm not really sure why it's not played. Maybe the chi slot. There's 2 other things as well that might be in that slot. Yeah.
So I'm going to just put Mystical Spear up on screen so people can see that. Covering up our faces a little bit, but that's okay. People don't need to see us, right? No, I agree. Actually, when I did my top 10 list for Bellum, it was on my list as one of my top 10 favorite cards in Bellum. I don't know why people don't play it more. I think part of it is that the cost on either or end, on the aura side or on the energy side, is a little steep. But the fact that you have that diversity, it's one of those cards that I think it underperforms because I don't think enough players are taking it seriously enough as a card.
Agreed.
It's a really, really solid card. But if you were to redesign it, is there any tweaks you could see yourself making on this card?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if putting it up a chi slot would lower the cost significantly enough, but that would really be the only thing. Because I do like the awareness that it has. It is slightly unique, I think, and I think with the right combination of other cards, you can surprise your opponent with it, right?
Yeah.
I think they're in a safe position, and then, or maybe they gust you away, and then you bring this out and hit them for an extra 3. And, yeah. But yeah, for redesigning that might be. It's been a while, but I can't quite remember tweaking with the formula. What parameters we had?
Yeah. No.
And, putting it up a chi slot might have brought it down, but again, then you're competing with a whole other list of cards.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah.
I think it would have been pretty cool if we had actually lowered the chi slot and maybe lowered the amount of damage it did. Imagine like having that kind of thing with at a 5 chi slot would be kind of cool, I think. Maybe have it to do 2 damage or something.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong.
Yeah. I think it's just one of those cards. It's pretty close to just perfect the way it is. I think if you just drop its energy cost down to 6, then I could see it seeing a lot more play. And then, but I just think people are not looking at it seriously enough. Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts, or let's go over to Lionel?
Yeah, sure. There's actually two. Earlier on in J, well, it was my first set that I started making seriously making cards for. And the two that come to mind right now.
Just
are
pick one. Just
Finishing
pick
Blow.
one for now. Just pick one.
Okay. Finishing Blow. Then.
Okay.
Since
We'll
I-
come back to you.
No worries, sounds good. But so if people don't know, Finishing Blow is, I believe it's a 5-chi technique. I can't remember if it was 5 or 4-chi. Either way, it kills a creature with 2 or less health. It kills outright. And the reason why I designed it that way was to help deal with flyers, because it is in Thymos, and they had a lot of issues. Actually, sorry, Chaos. They had a lot of issues dealing with flyers at the time. So this is one flying creatures. So this is one of the ways that I had thought to deal with it. The problem with it is that the costing was just too high, and there is a lot of other options in the 5G slots that had a better play to it. So it just kind of just fell to the wayside, and then became an underpowered card, and nobody really took a look at had taken a look at it seriously. So yeah, that's the one that comes to mind.
Yeah. So what would you price it at?
I'm thinking, like, just gut feeling without actually taking a look at the formula, I would probably go somewhere on lines of 4 energy or 3 or 4 energy. Like, I understand. I would have to play with it to really test and see how it feels, but that's where my mind is going.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, or do you think it would should cost about where it is?
I think I don't know. I have opinions on a lot of these things. I want the rest of the team to talk up. Carl, what would you think? Do you remember Finishing Blow as a card?
Yeah, I never really gave it much thought, because it just seemed to be pointless. That there were other cards that could do like Cleave or something like that, deal with fire as well, right?
Yeah.
And
For sure.
So, sorry, finish up, Carl.
it just seemed redundant. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned it was a 5G. It is actually a 4G card to begin with.
Okay. Understand.
It's kill target summon with 2 health or less in Finishing Blow's awareness. It is set synergy. If you had to ask me where I would correct this card, I would probably just bring the energy cost down, because there's something that we've all seem to have kind of missed, is the ability itself, where we're saying, yeah, Cleave is here, we got cast abilities. What happens if something is spectral, or that either we have to use a cast ability or we can't hit it? This can actually still target that target there with the ability itself. So we tend to, I think that's maybe where we missed a little bit. It's one of those cards that right now, yeah, it's very like underplayed, because there's not a situation where it really stands out. But in time, you might end up with that 1 hit point summon running around that you can't target with anything in that or something, and you just need to deal with it somehow.
So I think a lot of what you said is correct. Like, as meta stands right now, as the game stands right now, there is very little difference between kill target creature with 2 health or less or deal 2 damage. And that becomes a big discrepancy, because if I look at this card, I look at this compared to Flame Jet, compared to Cleave, compared to even Left Hook. Would I play this, or would I just run 2 Left Hooks? Because dealing damage allows you to target champions. This only targets summons. And especially in Welcome to JLR, there were decks that were running no summons. That's not so much the case anymore. But also, there's the fact that majority champions can hit for 2 built in. So if something has 2 health, you're just like, all right, basic attack, kill it.
And even furthermore from there, it's an action speed ability card. So, like, even if you were to kill something out, the more than likely they'll be responding, doing the damage anyway.
Yeah. So there's so many little flaws to this. I don't know if JC's right. Maybe it's possible that in the future there are going to be more cards where all of a sudden finishing blow is more solid of an option. But I think the game will gravitate towards having something more like Flame Jet over finishing blow. And if you had something like Flame Jet but cost energy, then that would probably replace finishing blow in a lot of ways. But I think this is... Pardon, you go?
No, I was also going to say, I feel like this card should be redesigned as a spell rather than a technique as well. But anyways, continue.
There's so much nuance to this. I think it's just one of those cards that, like, it was a great lesson learned. We tried something. It didn't work the way we expected. Like, I've had so many people tell me Genesis needs spot removal. Well, we have one, but no one plays it. And like Death Eater is probably your best spot removal card in the game. So, I don't know. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. For everyone who's just joining in now, make sure you leave a comment, say hi to us in the chat, and we take everyone who's watching, we put your names in a list, and at the end of the month, we'll do a random raffle where we'll give 5 random people a chance to win a booster pack. And the more times your name appears in that raffle, the more chances you have to win that booster pack. So I know last month we had people like Katie and Michael Conrad win those booster packs. So if you're watching, leave a comment, say hi, let us know that you're watching. All right, cool. I'll give my number one card that I feel like there's no play. We make jokes about it a lot, and that's No Man's Land. Let me just pull that up on screen for everyone. Give me a second here. Firehill, No Man's Land. So the thing is, No Man's Land has a beautiful, beautiful artwork, but not much play value. It kind of just consumed the screen right now. That's what No Man's Land does. So, No Man's Land. So this was a big mistake because I didn't realize that it was essentially useless until after it was printed. And someone came up to me and was like, wait a second, do you realize that you could just target No Man's Land in that situation? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, this card does not have as much value as I thought it would be. So there were a few things about it that were definitely challenging. I think right now, if I were to redesign it, some of the things I would look at is making it... hey Darren, hey Shahan, thanks for joining us.
Hey.
So, No Man's Land, if I were to redesign it, a few things I would look at is I'd want to make it into a trap and say if a champion or someone leaves No Man's Land, then everything targeting it, everything that can target it has to. So then all of a sudden you're now in fear of leaving No Man's Land. I don't know if thematically it would work on point as much, but it can turn the zone into kind of a No Man's Land state, where if you move and you call attention to yourself, then people will start attacking you. And then the other thing I would look at is some sort of a reducing cost and making No Man's Land itself maybe not targetable, or cannot be targeted by attack abilities. So those are kind of the things that I would look at when it comes to redesigning this card, but it was such a shame. I love the artwork. If people haven't read Carl's story for Idris, it's part 1, right? If you haven't read that, read it. The ending, I think, it plays into this artwork so beautifully. But the card itself, it just fell flat, in my opinion. What do you think, team?
Oh, I totally agree. It's unfortunate. I remember talking about it and the idea... because I think I may have helped pitch the idea for it, but the idea was super cool to me. But yeah, it kind of fell short.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, Carl, JC? Is there anything you would change about this card, or how would you approach it?
Throw immediate on it. Solves everything.
That's fair. That's fair.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, you go immediate, you get that trigger off, but at that point, I'd be looking at a 5 to maybe 6 cheat card just because of the amount of control that would be in it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Is No Man's Land still playable now? Pretty much no. Could you falter someone who's running a lot of rain summons and that? You probably could try to get them into a trap with it. They will attack it, but buy you a turn somewhere.
Yeah. The other side of it is if it was a quick create, then at least has a little bit more of a purpose where you could be... what could be a good example of this? So, you go to gust someone, they take it, push goes onto the stack. In response to that, you create No Man's Land right behind them, forcing their summons to kill No Man's Land. And then that way you exert their summons in response. That type of thing could be definitely reasonable. Yeah, so there are a few things we could have done to make this card a little bit better. It's lessons learned, right? It's one of those things that we really should be looking at multiple different scenarios when it comes to the playtesting experience. And this is where Future League's been helping out a lot. Future League's been really great at that. All right, going to the chat, Sean put out a thing. Is there a forward awareness kill a summon at action speed? No, and very likely there never will be. And there's a lot of design things behind that. The thing is, part of the reason why spot removal or bounce back is so difficult to design into Genesis is because resources are finite. And there's no fair way of designing a lot of those things. Even Death Eater, which I think is a really, really fair card, time and time again, people have complained about it being overpowered. And some people refusing to play with it just because it's too strong. Spot removal in here is, I think, a lot more difficult to balance than it is in a game where your resources are plentiful.
Would Rebound be considered spot removal?
Yeah, it comes pretty close, and I think Rebound is a pretty decent card. But even then, I think it's the closest we can have to like a fair example of spot removal, because early game you bounce something back, they can just replay it. Late game you bounce something back, they don't have enough ore to rebeckon it. You've essentially killed it. So I think that's kind of the closest you might see it to something like that. But I think like a straight out kill target summon, I don't know. All my playtesting experience have not gone well with that. But as the meta grows and the card pool grows, things may change. It's just I have my reservations about it.
Hey, if you're playing against Nubia Angels and just want to give her a bad day, play Purifying Wave all day long.
Yeah, that's true. Purifying Waves.
You will pace her out every time.
Yeah. So let's go round to our second picks, our second cards. So Lionel, you already had your second pick lined up. You want to lead us off? What's your second card?
Yeah, Celestial Cage. That's my second pick. Hold on, let me just make sure I have the wording right this time. Yeah, so Celestial Cage. It was a 4-chi spell that that costed 16 aura, and everything in Celestial Cage's awareness cannot play attack abilities for the round. It's a forward awareness. So I thought this was really cool because it would give you a reprieve for the round, or so that's a part of the reason why I created it. I think where the card fell short was, one, it was too expensive. The cost of 16 was just too great for a one-turn reprieve, and the card was at action speed as well. Now, it did gain a lot of strength because it could target everything in the awareness, but the majority of the time that it would be played, it would only deal with one thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was just really hard to play, and it could maybe have some pocket plays because it's a 4-chi slot, but there are other cards that you could place in that slot to really compensate for that. So, like if you're playing Bella Max on like Gust, would be a great example of that. So, yeah, which would just do more. Well, not more, but it'd be even cheaper than playing a Celestial Cage. So, there's a lot of issues and a lot of little tweaks that could have been made to it, but that's the second card that came to my mind.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely a comment in there related to what I'm going to talk about a little bit. Actually, so one thing that I've been learning a lot through playtesting, through playing the game more and more, is that in this game, it's usually better to have a stronger offense than to build a defense. In most situations, it's better to just instead of pacifying that creature for a turn or locking them down, stunning them, paralyzing them, it'd be better to just kill them. Now, if you go to try to kill them and you fail, then pacify as a side effect is definitely really solid. So, like a landslide, for example. But in this type of case where all you're doing is locking down the target, that's where some of the challenges come in. It's just, I'd rather run something at that slot that just kills them.
Yeah. And not only that, it's only specific to attack abilities. So
Yeah.
it just almost does nothing against casters or players that use a lot of aura heavy, spell heavy cards.
Flavor wise, I thought this was on point though. Like the artwork, the mechanics, I think a lot of it was a really great idea. Just it fell a little flat, and that was a shame. So if you were to redesign, you're saying swift speed and drop the cost?
Yeah, essentially. Putting it at swift speed would definitely be nice. And dropping the cost for sure is an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
No.
No? JC?
Just doing a reread. I know you played this a few times in some.
I have. The cost is always the thing that's hurt me the most. I actually don't mind that it's action speed. It's the aura. Like, I want to run it in a Raha deck, but every time I try playing it, it's just like, it's so much aura. It's 16 aura, I think?
16, yeah.
Yeah, like, that's just so much aura. To not deal damage to someone, it hurts.
Cards like this, the formula didn't account for it at the time. So it was completely gut feeling, and that's where I thought. But I was a bit off the mark at that point.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. Cool. Carl, you want to give us your second?
Sure. Again, trying to think of card. But I'm gonna go with Sandstorm. Maybe there are people that love it and use it, but I've rarely seen it in play. So, and again, I think it's the cost, right? It's exert and 14 aura to do 4 earth damage to everything on 2 different target spots in Sandstorm's awareness.
Yeah.
So there are some really neat nuances to the wording there of how you actually deal the damage. And with it being Earth, now that there's Earth Pillar. Which one is Earth Pillar in?
Thymos.
Thymos, okay. So you can't even use it with this card. So, so there's a few things there that make it difficult to play, right? You can't get the support for the Earth Pillar. You can't do anything else because it costs exert. I don't know what I would do differently though.
So
I think when we tried to come up with something that was area damage, we saw that the formula really
exploded.
Blows up.
Yeah.
So trying to make something in that awareness work was difficult, right?
Yeah.
Again, your previous idea for Mystical Spearline was to drop the damage, so 4 damage down to 3 or 2 maybe, but but yeah, it is a target spot though. That's the thing. So if people are spamming skeletons from
Call to the Bones.
Call to the Bones, you can just drop a couple of these and or 1 a turn because it exerts.
Yeah.
So my experience with this card is that it's actually, I think it's just missing the next wave, which is Thymos Axon Champions, because you combine this with the Earth Pillar, it becomes so good.
So good.
The other card that I'd love to use with it is Adrenaline.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
The Earth Axon Thymos decks are really interesting because now you get Stone Protector Nye with Lion Mane Rabbit, and that becomes really silly. And then you have Sandstorm and Earth Pillar. You have Adrenaline being able to play into that. Like it becomes definitely really, really interesting trying to look at that new space because it's pretty cool. Sorry.
Honestly,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest with you, Carl, that's one of my favorite cards you've created, is Sandstorm. I think it's just super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it may fall short on a few aspects, but I really like the way, like how it functions.
Okay.
Personally, that's just me.
I think where Sandstorm kind of gets left behind a lot of the time, people is like, well, I can run Tsunami. Tsunami seems to be everybody's answer to when something with us doing new balance. Just throw Tsunami in there. It's better. It's like, that's great. You do know that if your summon's out there, playing the front line and you go run a Tsunami, your summon's going to hit by that.
Mm-hmm.
At least with Sandstorm, you can target the spots and hit everything on that spot. And it's one more damage as well. So, yes, you're exerting yourself in that. The cost is a little higher, but if, again, you have your summon that's out there trying to take one for the team as well, at least you're not killing it at the same time.
Yep. And there's also the fact that if you play Tsunami and your opponent comes and tempo relocates you, then they're in control of where that Tsunami is going to hit. But if you play Sandstorm and they tempo relocate you, they don't have control anymore. Sandstorm is targeting those spots. So the most they can do is make the card fizzle, but they can't stop it. They can't take advantage of it.
Hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Your own things.
So that's kind of the parts that are really interesting about Sandstorm. I think it is a very playable card. I think the part that people are missing is that I don't know if it's good in a caster deck, but the fact that casters have both Tsunami and Sandstorm, it makes it a little bit harder. But someone who's mid-range on aura, so Kun or Core, these are two champions that I'll definitely look at running Sandstorm over Tsunami.
I would be definitely with Kun with that start of the turn movement ability, basically.
Yep, that's true. Being able to turn a action into a pseudo swift. Being able to move twice and then play it.
Can you still hear me? Or
Yeah. I can still hear you.
I think one of my headphones died. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, I love Sandstorm. I think it's a very, very solid card. But I agree. I don't think enough people look at it. And yeah, that's the thing. I don't think people pick it up very often. But in the right deck, and then especially once Axon and Thymos comes out, it's going to be a big thing. I'm going to jump to the comments for a few seconds here. So Shahan says, why isn't Aura a way to balance spot removal? And Chi, of course, spot removal is always Aura negative by a large degree. So that's the thing. We can design it to make it Aura negative, but it's usually not the case. It's hard to hit that wide range, especially with summons looking at Angel. Angel is the one you want to do spot removal against. And for it to be aura negative, you have to have spot removal that costs 30 aura, roughly, to play. And the people who want spot removal are fighters. So fighters don't really normally have the aura to sustain that kind of spot removal. So there becomes this kind of conflict of interest. That's why we tried to go on the energy front, but that didn't work like we saw with Finishing Blow. Binding it by Chi is definitely something we looked at, and there was Deathly Return that we looked at where you could bounce something back, but it cost 6, but it had to be something a 6 Chi or lower.
Yes.
And that's another card that we don't see a lot of play of. And I don't know if that's JC's second pick or if he has something else in mind. But that is yours, right, JC? I think yours was
Deathly Return?
Yeah.
No, what's wrong with Deathly Return? It's your chrono gets hit, you Deathly Return it back, you get a skeleton.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I think the analysis of why don't people play it is definitely an interesting topic. But Deathly Return is definitely an interesting card. Binding things by Chi, there's just so much restrictions and so much to consider. I just don't think it's healthy to put spot removal if we do it wrong, spot removal in the game right now could be very unhealthy. And that's, I think, the big concern about it. And then from Andrew coming in from YouTube, Celestial Cage is worth keeping and needs reworking. The flavor is on point and would hate to see it gone. The error could even see a more light pillar like caging imagery. Okay, so yeah, It's definitely a solid card. I think it was fun to play with in draft or limited. I would definitely consider the card, but I don't know. It's hard to put it into a constructed deck. All right, moving on. JC, what's your second card?
I don't know. I was gonna throw Tacky Psyche under the bus, but I'm like, no, I think I could still find a use for that somewhere. In that, pitching off like a Gilded Stag and then playing like a I don't know, a Necrolich behind it, and then having an extra card on top just in case to burn for energy. But I'm looking at Dark Loa. As my next one.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's there as like I'm like, yeah, do a support card. It'll be great. I'm looking at it, I was like, yeah, it's an idea, but how well does support work with cards in Genesis? So Dark Loa, 2 health, 4 chi card. It's 9 or to beckon. It does have a swift cast that says the next non-holy attack ability played by target champion or summon Dark Loa's awareness is reduced by 2 damage. So I think the issue with him is just it's getting him into that position to do it. He only has a forward awareness. Yeah, he could potentially prevent a lot of damage from happening if he's on a flank, but it's getting him there.
Yeah.
Really. Like if he had like a forward awareness or a front at like a higher chi, maybe. But in the current state, it's a really techie card.
Yeah. I think shifting the awareness would definitely have made this card solid. Another thing is, like the Hallowed Sentry has the attack and the cast as 2 separate abilities.
Yes.
I think both of those cards could have benefited with an attack, and then the trigger in the attack does the attack reduction.
That's true.
Even if this was hitting for 1 and then triggered into reducing the attack, or even hitting for 0 and then triggering into the attack reduction, because then you could boost it, and there's other things you could do with it. So you could do a dark attack 0 if a champion or summon is targeted by Dark Loa, then their next attack is reduced by 2. It's just something to give it more of a reason to be out there, because now, as it stands right now, most of the time, again, like we talked about before, I'm rather looking at something that will help me win the game than something to stop my opponent from winning the game. But yeah, I think the awareness change would have been a big boost to this card. Yeah. What do you think, Lionel? Carl?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't know about giving it a 0 attack, because, yeah. But I think that would be pretty cool as a damage trigger.
Hey, the last card I gave a 0 attack to, people played.
Okay, fine.
It's a rabbit.
I know. People love rabbits. That's
yeah. We gotta make the rabbit world. Carl?
No, nothing to add.
Alright. Then I'll jump into my last card. This is one of those... I don't think it's a bad card. I actually think it's a really great card. I just don't think people play it enough, and that's Defensive Practice. From Beta. Defensive Practice is one of those cards that I don't want to reprint because I think it's too powerful in where it is right now. So it's 3 chi. I think it's 4 energy or 3 energy. It's pretty low there. And it prevents 1 damage from the next thing that targets you. And the key here is the fact that it's... it doesn't even... It's not even attack abilities. Yeah?
Sid, it's not even target. It's a damage coming from anywhere.
Yeah. So this card's just insane. You don't even need to be targeted. It doesn't even have to be attack abilities. It's not bounded by an awareness. It's at 3 chi. Like, this card all around, there's so much about it that's insanely powerful about it. It breaks the mold of what cards in Genesis do so much that it doesn't even feel like a card in Genesis anymore. And so that's kind of my biggest concern about this card. I don't know why people don't pick it more on their 3 chi slots. It's one of my favorite 3 chi cards for Bellum. Yeah.
Me too.
It's actually quite solid. I remember putting it in my early decks back when Welcome to Julara and Beta Route. So
yeah.
when it was released. Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Carl?
Yeah, I always use it.
Yeah. Like, it's one of those things, I think, from the design perspective, like, being as part of the design team, looking at it, and I'm just like, oh, I wish it didn't exist in the game. Because the game design team knows how sticky I get when it comes to making defensive cards. Like, it's hard to make a good defensive card when I'm part of the game design team.
See, I'm gonna keep on going about defensive practice, but I really like this card with Fong because like I don't know if I'm one of the few players, but I feel like I'm one of the few players that like use her defensive fire shield against on herself constantly. So instead of using it on herself, I'll just use defensive practices, and it does the exact same thing as what I'm intending for it. So
yeah, all in all, I love this card. I think it's, and then the artwork, I mean, all things considered, it's a pretty nice artwork. I like it. It was supposed to be the whole entire Wonder Woman when she walks into the no man's land. You have the bullet shooting at her. She has the shield in front of her. That was the reference I used for when sending this to the artist. So all in all, like, I think it should see more play because I think it's really silly how good it is. Yeah. Into the comments, Darren, I agree, bunnies are the best. Yeah. Bunnies are a thing.
they are the best.
It's funny because I was recently watching Buffy, and there's this one character in Buffy who's just terrified of bunnies. So she keeps on talking about how, like, you know, why do they need to eat so many carrots, or why are they always hopping around and all these things, and she just hates them. And I'm like,
that's adorable.
Yeah, that's funny. And then in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there was actually a character who was a samurai bunny. And I was like,
He's based off of the famous samurai, Usagi Jimbo or something like that? Or?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the name.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I'm just like, you know, this can spark some inspiration for the future, right?
I get to design the next one.
Yeah, JC made one. I think I made the first few. So Carlson needs to make one, and Lionel. No, didn't you make one, Lionel, or no?
I don't believe I made one. Did I?
I don't know. And then from Shahan, Bellum Chaos Champion. When so Future League, you know that there are stuff that we're planning for Bellum Chaos. Look at Vampire. Bellum Chaos is a really interesting combination because there's, on one end, they have some of the best 7G cards. Actually, in general, I think 7Gs are some of the best cards. So it's a really hard designing Bellum Chaos, but they're good. I like playing with it.
So just like to throw it out there, his name is Atsu Usagi Yujimbo.
Yeah.
I don't know how I remembered that.
Well played, my friend.
Well played.
All right. I think that's all we'll do for today because we're quite a bit over time already. So thanks, team, for coming up with those cards and for sharing some of our pain points, because that's the thing. We design all these cards and we make mistakes. Everyone knows the cards that we make that are insanely powerful. Most of them I made, if not all of them. Epiphany.
I'll fight you for that.
Epiphany, Bullshot, Tsunami. Some of the most broken cards in the game I design.
Chrono Walker.
Oh my goodness. We did Alex and I recently sat down in the formula to figure out how much Chrono Walker should cost, and it was like 59.
Is it 59?
Yeah.
I swear, when I put him through, he came
Why
through
do that
34.
to you?
And then Bolt Shot is like 7 or 12 aura, something absurd like that. I mean energy. So yeah, it was. We all know about those really good cards in the game, but to talk about some of the cards that fell short and to spend a moment to reflect and try to become better as designers, so that we can put things forward, so we can seriously have the conversation about spot removal, or why do defensive cards not get favored over the offensive cards. I think it's a good conversation. Yeah,
for sure. And I also want to like kind of say that the one of the biggest things about designing is not designing too fast. I don't remember the technology the actual term for it, but designing slow, right? Keep it stupid, keep it simple, I think it is.
Yeah,
keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, that's it. Yes,
yeah.
That's it. Yeah, so a part of that is how we designed it, and some of these cards could have been really, really strong if we didn't take that approach. So
yeah.
We learned from it, and now we know what our scope is, and continue from there.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the biggest things I learned from beta is that it's better to design cards that are slightly underperforming so that we can revamp them in the future, compared to creating cards that are overperforming and be limited in design space. So it is a constant balance between making reasonable cards and making cards that are exciting for the game. So that being said, just some final announcements. Remember Tuesday's show with me and Alex exploring the library. It's going to be covering first turn advantage. So we're going to be talking a lot about making that opening play. What should you be doing on your first turn? How you should move? Should you just stay where you are, moving forward, moving left, right? When's the advantage to doing all those things? And we'll be doing a lot of run-throughs for that. And then we'll be talking about some Future League stuff and getting a game in there. And then also, the Akasha Codex Chapter 1 came out this week. I'm really excited about that. And then in 2 weeks from now, we'll have the next chapter come out. And then what else is happening? We got the random live streams. So whenever I'm doing gaming in the evening, I'm going to be live streaming that. So make sure you're following us on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, so that you have the opportunity to get to see those live streams and talk to us about gameplay. And then on YouTube, I'm doing the pack opening where we're currently adding to the pool. This is the current pool. We got 5 packs in here. That's the current pool. We got Revenge of the Phoenix, Hegemon, Mongol, Burk Naga, and a Zamber Dragon in that pool already. So the deal is, once I open up a boost pack that has an epic in it, I give that pack plus all the other packs that are in the pool to one person at random who's subscribed to the YouTube channel and who's leaving comments there. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. And then COVID reminder, things are getting crazy out there. It is.
So can I do the reminder?
Yes. Yes. Go for it, JC.
All right. As someone who works in the hobby and gaming industry, just remember that your local game store, your LGS, is our frontliners to our hobbies. Make sure that you're respecting the decisions, the rules that they have put in the store, and make sure that you're following the public health unit's advisories as well. If the store asks you, hey, you know what, sanitize your hand when you come in, sanitize your hands. If they say only go down aisles a certain way, only go down aisles a certain way. Remember, they are our frontliners in our hobbies. They are working hard every day to make sure we get the things that we enjoy.
Yeah. It's so easy to forget that, and to also have like small little explosions of people who are getting infected. Like, I heard about a grocery store recently where it's a small little grocery store in a small city, and they had 13 cases in one weekend. In the staff, not the customers, but it was the staff. And that was nearly like a quarter of their entire staff that were just now had to take it 2 weeks off. And so it's so easy for things to spiral out of control.
So from my experience where I work from home. This where I sit now is my home office. This is my workspace now, 4 days a week. I do one day where I go into our office, but the moment I get up from my desk and travel through that building in any way, shape, or form, a mask goes on. There's hand sanitizers there for us to use. So it doesn't take much for a few people to sit down at the lunch table, forget, and spread it very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. It's easy to get complacent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got to stay vigilant, especially with, Anyways, so the town hall happening on Monday. That's going to be at 5 p.m. And there's a Zoom meeting for that. If you're interested in joining us, let me know, and we'll make sure that conversation happens. And then tonight, Alex has left a message in the chat saying that he'll be coming on to Tabletop Simulator at 7:30. I'll be on there around 7 doing some deck crafting. So if you want to join me at 7, that's available for you. If you have ideas for future live streams that you want to see, leave a comment. We'll try to address those conversations. And then, as always, feel free to continue this conversation with us in Discord after this live stream is over. So that's it for today. Any other comments from the team? No? All right.
Thank
I'll
you so
see
much
you
for
in the
being here.
arena.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Take care.
All right.